made your name with entertainment such as Kids React, a distillation of the name of which is React. You claim the trademark on the name under a federal act to protect your brand from any imitation it attracts. So if a creator names a similar video with React, then they've taken it from you and they should give it back. I can understand how you'd maybe want to limit that, but the claims you later made explaining it are inexact. That's why there's been attacks on Twitter and on Facebook lately. The brain sees straight away when statements are evasive, shady. YouTube's creative space has already been made dark. DMCA, content ID, now we need trademarks.
Let's talk about it right now on Cordkillers!
Welcome to Cordkillers, our mission to help you find out all the intel you need to be able to watch what you want, when you want, where you want, how you want, on whatever device you want, and react in whatever way you want. I'm Tom Merritt.
Hey man, I'm Brian Brushwood. I'm ashamed to be Brian Brushwood. I'd rather be Dan Bull, geek recording artist extraordinaire, able to drop amazing rhymes in which he distills the giant controversy about the Fine Brothers, which we're about to get to. But first, we got to welcome our special guest. Hi, Iyaz.
That would be you, Iyaz Akhtar of CNET.com. My apologies there. The wind, by the way, just started to whisper your name.
I was going to say that I'm fine with being Iyaz Akhtar. I might not be Dan Bull, but I'm going to be just fine being me today. And I look forward to talking about this because I've read so many things today.
Retired lawyer Iyaz Akhtar joins us today to talk about our primary target.
That's right.
Okay, I got two things I'm going to do before I just let you guys loose to talk about this. One is kind of summarize for people who haven't heard what's going on. And the other is a little bit of my interpretation of both sides of the message. So what's happening is the Fine Brothers, who do the Kids React videos that you've heard of, and they have a channel called React, released a video announcing their plans for something called React World, which would allow anybody to make reaction videos on their channel. So they were saying, look, you want to make a kids react video? You can do it. Here, we'll make it easy for you, and we'll share any revenue we both make. They mentioned that they have trademarks and formats that they'll license as part of the program. They called attention, unintentionally, I think, to the fact that they had filed a trademark for the word react. And there was a backlash against the video, against the Fine Brothers, claims of them trying to copyright reaction videos, and that's a confusion between copyright and trademark. They never said anything about copyright. A guy named Video Game Lawyer on Reddit, who has done a lot of this sort of thing, is leading a protest, offering pro bono help to anybody who is served any kind of notice by the Fine Brothers. He's also encouraging the public to dispute the trademark of React, which is in a public comment period. There are a bunch of accusations that the Fine Brothers have tried to get other channels who've done reaction videos banned. They've had channels taken down, people say. There were people pointing to their reaction to Ellen DeGeneres doing a thing with kids as an example, although one of those threads has been taken off Facebook. The Fine Brothers deny all of this. They say, look, we're not trying to claim all reaction videos. They say in rare cases, we've gone after imitators that really try to do the same thing as us, but we're just trying to make it so that people can join in our channel. And yet they have lost close to 200,000 subscribers over this controversy. So here's what I think the Fine Brothers were saying, and here's what I think the internet heard. The Fine Brothers were saying, hey, we'll let you make versions of our show yourselves. Isn't that cool? And the internet heard, you can't make a video of people reacting to things without our permission. The Fine Brothers said, let's all band together against people who make knockoffs of things like our videos, huh? Let's fight this. And people heard, we will come at you, and we are building a gang of people to do it, and we have lawyers. The Fine Brothers thought they were trying to clamp down on people who want to make videos like theirs and make it easy for people to do it with them so that they could all make money off it and everyone would win. What some people thought they were doing is trying to stop anyone from making reaction videos and saying they have legal tools to control all videos with reactions in them. Essentially, we own your ideas. So that said, full disclosure, my wife works at the YouTube space LA. She has worked very closely and is friends with the Fine Brothers. I have not met them. I do not know them personally. But it sounds like a very poorly worded message on the one hand and a lot of misunderstanding have ignited an internet flame war.
Yeah, so I asked just for grins, because I know that you'll be able to chime in on a lot of the nitty-gritty. Let's just take just a moment to sort of appreciate, absent the Ellen DeGeneres moment, absent the alleged overreach they've made before, absent the public perceptions about obligations to go after people violating trademark versus copyright. This normally, and we talked about this last night, Tom, if none of the controversy happened, this would probably still be our primary target, because the idea of franchising a YouTube television format is exciting stuff. That is a sign that it is a maturing market and that things are getting much more interesting. If you live in Brazil, for example, and you have cameras and people booked and you're ready to do a React video, you now have a choice. You can establish your own property from the ground up that's about reaction, or you can exactly follow an established recipe that has been proven to make crazy money worldwide, and you could do it by giving 30% to the people. I believe it's 30%. I'm not sure about that. But that alone is exciting, and I in zero way fault the Fine Brothers for going for it. However, in execution, it's astonishing how, unfortunately, there is the fact that they did apparently, I mean, unless I'm looking at a Photoshop when I see this, apparently they put up a post on Facebook saying, "Hey team, go after and take down Ellen DeGeneres for having the audacity to show off, old technology to kids and get their reactions on it." They did apply for trademarks, not just on Kids React, Elders React, etc., but also just on the word React. Some people have said on Twitter, it's the same as if you tried to license Scam School, which is wrong for a number of reasons, not the least of which is that I don't own Scam School. But imagine my show was called Learn the Blank Magic Trick. And that was my format, is that the problem on YouTube is that titles tend to be inherently descriptive. Almost none of our titles on the Scam School channel say the word Scam School. They all are descriptive of the content that you're going to get when you click on it. So if that would be a problem if I were to say, well, I own Learn the Blank Magic Trick. So nobody can post a video titled Learn the Blank Magic Trick, even though it's a descriptive thing. That's where we are. Help me make sense of this, Iyaz, especially given go ahead.
The first half of what you said, by the way, of the idea of franchising it, I thought it was pretty cool. I've done independent work on my own, building the graphics packages, building your brand. It takes a long freaking time. And the idea that you could use and hook into a well-established brand, I didn't think that was crazy. They wanted to take a cut. You know what? If you put an app in an app store, sometimes they take cuts. So I kind of see this concept, the message delivered way poorly. Anyway, let's talk about this trademark thing. Okay. Trademarks, people have this idea. I'm trying to stifle my rage and trying to speak slowly here, so excuse me if I try not to swear. But this whole thing about trademarking React, the thing they've actually trademarked is the word React, and their classification statement says entertainment services, namely providing an ongoing series of programs and webisodes via the internet in the field of observing and interviewing various groups of people. Now, what that means is if Brian, for some reason, you wanted to have your own network where people are watching other stuff and they're having some kind of reaction, you shouldn't be able to call it the React Network. You'd have to call it something else, like observations of few people, whatever you're going to call it. But that's the thing. It's very limited and it's weak. It's a weak trademark. Trademarks have a lot of strengths, okay? If you have a fanciful title or you have something that's descriptive. The more descriptive it is, like React, the weaker the trademark is. So I actually did a ton of reading about not just trademark on the actual word React, but this idea of copywriting television formats. Because one of the things that got these guys in a lot of trouble was saying, oh, well, we're going to license out our format. People are like, what's your format? You're talking about people watching other videos? That's the format? You haven't stated what that is? Okay. So they try to explain it's like the Britain's Got Talent, America's Got Talent kind of thing. Okay. I found this work over at, so let me get the actual name of it down, Media Law Resource Center. And it was this piece called Limitations on Copyright Protection for Format Ideas in Reality Television. Because for the most part, this really seems to be a analog of reality television because it's unscripted, people are talking. And there's only so much copyright protection you can get on formats. And I've seen a lot of the cases that were mentioned in this paper talking about, like a television show like Wife Swap versus Trading Spouses. Very similar premise. What elements can be copyrighted? What parts can you actually sue about? And the fun thing is the two networks actually settled out of court. So there's a lot of these settlements that happen outside of court. So we don't know exactly what parts are copyrightable and what's not. But there is so much generic pieces of non-copyrightable interactions that happen in these videos that this major panic that everyone's having, like, oh, they're going to sue us over this. Even if they did, there's a good chance they would lose because there's really not a heck of a lot going on there.
Here's the funny part is we live in this weird funhouse mirror universe in YouTube where the actual law doesn't really matter because what Google says is the law of the land. This is a world where, there are people whose spurious business models include find a video that it's exploding, claim it before the other guys claim it, ride and delay for 4 weeks while you derive revenue from other people's work, and then release the claim and repeat on the next video that's exploding. So weirdly, we already have the one layer about what they can and can't do. We have the other layer of how mushy and strange the world of trademark is, and about how, even lawyers oftentimes don't really understand all the ins and outs of trademark, especially given the different categories that you're protecting. On top of all of that, you have the fact that the law kind of doesn't apply in YouTube town. YouTube is the sheriff of YouTube town, and if YouTube feels like, well, so-and-so claims this copyright, so I'm going to shut it down, they're going to do it. And those people, especially given the fact, now, this is hearsay, we don't know, but there's a number of people who say that posting a video with the word react in it has gotten them a takedown from the Fine Brothers, and that may or may not be. We know for it seems as though it's a very strong probability that they have made a lot of noise about, the Ellen DeGeneres doing some kind of kids react thing. And now on top of all of this, and this is a weird kind of sideways thing, there's a number of videos where people are complaining about the fact that they've gotten a spurious or clearly a fair use situation, and they've gotten some kind of takedown notice, and they've gotten a strike, and all of a sudden they're not allowed to monetize their videos. They're not allowed to stream live. They're not allowed to do videos longer than 15 minutes long. In fact, which channel is this, Bryce, right here that we're looking at this story from The Verge?
There were multiple. So there's Eli the Computer Guy, Alternate History Hub, I Hate Everything. There are a lot of channels that have been...
But all of those channels, and we're starting to mix stories. So
exactly.
let's back up slowly here.
Exactly.
And there are several complaints from channels, Channel Awesome, Eli the Computer Guy, Alternate History Hub, and I Hate Everything, who said they've received strikes for either copyright or community. That means somebody said that their video was offensive and broke community standards, and they had a hard time getting YouTube to respond to say, hey, wait a minute, this is fair use, or I don't understand why I'm getting community strike, until they made a complaint about it, and then someone from YouTube got in touch with them, and they were all resolved. Okay, so we're starting to muddy the waters when we bring this in, but it is a fair point to say if everyone fears that the Fine Brothers will use their powers for ill, then that could have a chilling effect on other people making reaction videos, which is, it's starting to sound like a tempest in a teapot, right? But what I would like to point out is all the Fine Brothers said, and I will agree, Iyaz, that I don't think their original video said it very well. They made a lot of claims about changing the world. I think they misread their community, or at least the community of YouTube, in the way that they made the delivery. But all they said was, if you want to make our format of videos, in other words, use our logos, use our name, be on our channel, we're going to make that easy for you to do, and we'll split the revenues with you. And if that's all they said, I don't think people would have had a problem with that. They also trademarked the word react, which, as Iyaz has explained, is very narrow to say we're trademarking the name of our network. Now, you could say, well, trademarks are pretty vague, and that could be misused. The fact of the matter is it's rarely misused, and they also would be in danger if they didn't trademark it. If you don't trademark something, you get trademark protection for your location, but you don't get as much defense in court, and it doesn't apply nationally unless you register it federally. So if they're going to call their channel React, they kind of have to file a trademark. All of this is to say, what this is boiled down to is, do you trust the Fine brothers not to try to exploit the weaknesses in the YouTube system and the vague and misunderstandings of trademark law to go after people and shake them down for money because they don't want to go to court? And what I think has been revealed is a deep and previously unknown to me mistrust.
Yeah, no, and I think that's why I keep thinking of it in terms of a world absent the past where the Ellen thing happened, or where, you know, people were able to step forward and say, no, I was taken advantage of, whatever. Because the funny part is I have no doubt these guys have the best intentions at heart. I have no doubt that if they thought 1/10 of this backlash would happen, they would never have gone public with this scheme. They seem like good guys, and I suspect that they're going to be on the right page. But it's clear that they've tapped into some well of anger. Some of it pointed at them specifically, others of it pointed at not them. Which is why I brought up the whole people are frustrated at YouTube thing, because we've already seen, we're just coming out of the dark ages of copyright takedowns. We're starting to find nuance in here. And I think a lot of people are overreacting in their response to the Fine brothers. The YouTubers react to the Fine brothers is that they're overreacting mainly because they're so worried, especially as we are now 10 to 11 years into the YouTube experiment, and now we have an entire class of people who are young content creators who are saying, I'm going to be part of this landscape. I've decided, I've explained to my parents, my grandparents, my relatives what it means to be a YouTuber. I want to do this for a living. This is going to be my life. That's my job, is I'm a guy who talks on this international global network of people, and my insights are valued by other people, and that's how I make my money. And the very whiff that especially in a world where YouTube tends to at least react quickly in favor of people who claim copyright infringement, this has to terrify anyone who's 25 and trying to make these videos.
I wouldn't think it terrifies them at all, honestly. I mean, you know how easy it is to make a reaction video? I mean, when it was very difficult to put together the resources to have a computer in front of somebody and you can record them and very quickly, I think if anything, it would actually cause people to make more of them just to tick these people off. And when it comes to this whole backlash, this is basically simple business, isn't it? If you, as a company, say something publicly that looks dumb and it's misread by people, you got to spin that. You got your PR team. You got to make sure that somebody was watching the video that you were putting out there. Like, you know, there's this big national football league, and they sue everybody who uses the word Super Bowl in a certain context. Yet people still love the NFL. Well, how do they do that? They have to manage what they're doing. And in this case, this is basically business. So there's a good idea. The message was really murky, and it's caused a bunch of people to freak out. So now they have to work really hard to try to get back some of the goodwill they thought they had. But people were like, oh, no, it's all over. Everything's burning down. So it's just going to take some time to suss out.
Yeah, and it also is, what do they do, right? Facebook has trademarks for the word like, okay? Like, trademarking React should not be controversial at all.
Right.
What they do with that is what's interesting. You can talk about the Super Bowl in an advertisement legally, and the NFL can't do anything about it. The reason you don't see people do that is that the NFL is very aggressive and has aggressive lawyers, and they go after people even if they're using it in a way that is appropriate, because again, people don't want to, they don't want to deal with it. So the question is, when the Fine brothers complained about Ellen doing a video with kids reacting and said, gosh, I wish they would have reached out to us, when they said, hey, you guys, let Ellen know we're not happy about this, was that overreacting? No pun intended. Or was that just two people frustrated that, hey, we're making this format popular and we're not getting credit for it? And I think you can make good arguments both ways. When there's people saying we got shut down, again, it could be that these people were making normal shows and the Fine brothers used their connections with YouTube and the YouTube vagaries of the system to shut them down. It could also be that those folks were making something that was incredibly close to what the Fine brothers made, and they had every reason to shut them down. Again, I don't know. I haven't seen them. So I'm not claiming it's one way or the other. But going forward, it's, I think we all know that the Fine brothers are probably going to play this very close to the vest. But it's a lot of reaction to things that might happen, not reaction to things that could happen. Some of those are very valid. Like, hey, you guys, I've heard that maybe you shut some channels down. And if you're going to use this new program to shut people down, I don't like it.
Yeah, and the funny part is, in the world of Cordkillers, this story is a positive story. This is a story.
It should have been, right?
And it is, because it's a positive story in that it shows that the emerging space of a non-cable controlled universe, in a world where you don't have CBS, NBC, Fox, and so on controlling everything, where you actually have small players who are getting to a point where they want to license their shows, and they're bumping up against the fact, like, what does it mean to franchise a television network and stuff? These are great growing pains that show you have a robust entertainment ecosystem. And weirdly, if you're somebody who's interested in watching what you want, when you want, or whatever device you want, this is nothing but a good story, because it indicates that the content you love is growing up, and as a result, we have grown-up problems.
Hey guys, it's Bryce here. We spent the whole episode talking about the Fine Brothers story, and just as we were about to publish the episode, the Fine Brothers released a new statement, and I wanted to give you a little bit of an update, so the whole episode wasn't a whole week behind. In a blog post on Medium, the Fine Brothers say, quote, "The reality that trademarks like these could be used to theoretically give companies, including ours, the power to police and control online video is a valid concern. And though we can assert our intentions are pure, there's no way to prove them." The post also asserts that they will be rescinding all of the React trademarks and applications, including React, Kids React, Elders React, Lyric Breakdown, etc. They will discontinue the upcoming React World program and release all past Content ID claims. They also say, quote, "It makes perfect sense for people to distrust our motives here, but we are confident that our actions will speak louder than these words moving forward." If you want to read the whole Medium post, check out our show notes at cordkillers.com. Now, back to the rest of the show.
Speaking of which, Tom, you want to talk about grown-up problems?
Yeah.
You ready for this?
Yeah.
Remember when we were children and we're all like, hey, man, I want to do a show about cutting the cords, and wouldn't it be great if we could afford to
we were sitting in the sandbox, and
yeah,
we're like, someday there'll be cords, and I'm going to want to cut them. I'm going to want to kill them.
And it's like, well, how do we do that? Oh, there's payment systems. It's so complicated. It's like, well, let's try patreon.com. Let's be listener supported, right?
Wait a minute. Being listener supported. Hold on. So what you're saying is, instead of having to go around and say, hold on, when you distribute Cordkillers over here, you have to do it in a way that we can track. We say, give Cordkillers to as many people as possible and have as many people as possible watch it, because that only makes it better, because it's paid for by the people who watch it.
I mean, that's the way you and I mean, I'm not disparaging anyone who didn't take the route we took. But
because I also took that other route, as did you and Iyaz.
Here's the important part, though, is we went with Patreon. And for 2 years now, every time you went to patreon.com/cordkillers, you saw a trusty old reliable website. Not no more. We just hit puberty, son. We're going through changes. We look different.
What?
Go to patreon.com/cordkillers and look at the brand new Cordkillers.
It's so beautiful.
I know. It's Patreon recently updated their entire templates. It looks really rad. It's the same content you know and love. Everything is still the same, but Patreon is making it better and better. It's as though they're providing a valuable service for which they should have a cut of all the monies that you donate at patreon.com/cordkillers.
We need to change that thumbnail.
And to be fair, folks, you are the ones that make it possible for us to do this show. So if you get value out of the show, we're asking you to decide how much that value is. Could be $0, could be $1 million. We're not putting a cap on it. Go to Patreon.com.
Yeah, you know what? In fact, I regret that you even said $1 million. Right? It could be $1 trillion.
Yeah, exactly.
Quintillion.
There's no limit.
A centillion.
Patreon.com/cordkillers. All seriousness, like, if you get $1 value out of the show, we ask that you give $1 back, or $1.50, or whatever you can afford and whatever you think the show is worth. Patreon.com/cordkillers. Let's move on to Signals Intelligence.
Yeah, I agree. I concur, sir.
We've been doing this show for years, as you pointed out, Brian. And even before the show, we did a very similar show called Frame Rate on the Twit Network. And every time Time Warner announced its yearly subscriber figures, they were going down, and they were making excuses. Oh, it's the housing market. Oh, it's the economy. Oh, it's this and that. Well, guess what? Time Warner Cable had a net addition in Q4 of 54,000 subscribers to give them an addition for the year of 32,000 subscribers, the first time Time Warner Cable has grown in subscribers since 2006. Now, it's still only 32,000, and by comparison, they grew their internet subscribers by 281,000. But what the heck is going on?
Man, this is a really good conundrum. By the way, we're looking at a graph that was released by Time Warner Cable. It's up on The Verge. And their own graph does not go far enough back in time to show the last previous year that they had a net increase in subscribers. It was 2006 was the last time they grew, but their graph only goes back to 2009. I mean, first of all, put up or shut up. We have to shut up. They're right. They clearly grew. Those numbers are very likely not falsified. But what is it? Is it a, wait? What's that?
I'm pretty sure they're not falsified.
Okay, well, I don't want to flat out say they're definitely not. I'm just saying, I'm trying to be a journalist, Tom. You'll learn about this someday.
I'll try.
So here's the thing. Is this an indication that people are falling back in love with cable? Is it an indication that the economy is doing well enough that we all shrug our shoulders and we don't mind paying $100 convenience fee, especially when the far and away, and we've talked about this before on the show, if what you care about is watching what you want, when you want, on whatever device you want, the easiest way to get there, money out of the picture, is to have cable, authenticate your cable with all of the subscription services, and go to town, right? Is this a case where we're all just well off enough to get into it, or what?
I think it's easy to overreact to all kinds of news. It was wrong to overreact to Time Warner losing subscribers and say cable is over. Obviously, cable has not been over, even though they've been losing subscribers since 2006. They're still here. They're still making lots of money. That was an overreaction if people said cable was over. It's like, well, it's declining. This addition of 32,000 numbers in subscribers doesn't mean cable has won. They beat off the Cordkillers. It means we hit a plateau. And the question is that the bottom of the market now and we're just bouncing around because it's a pretty small number? Or is this a sign of a return, like Time Warner's doing all the right things with their skinny bundles and their TV everywhere and it's going to start coming back? Or is it just a ledge where we're going to keep going down in a little bit? Iyaz, what's your guess?
I really wish I'd read their report because now I'm wondering what is their definition of a subscriber? Is it somebody that has that little $10 bundle you can get the starter TV one? Because if it includes that, there's a good chance because Time Warner was doing a lot of price cutting and they came up with these smaller and smaller packages. Yeah, you can add a subscriber, but what are they watching? That's the question. How many channels are they actually getting? So I think what's going on now, it could be that price cutting. It could also just be this idea that if you are going to start going in and get all these a la carte services, if you're going to do Netflix, you're going to do HBO Now, you're going to get Amazon Prime Video, if you just tack them all on, after a while, the pricing makes more sense to just go with cable. And I'm still waiting for some company to go, hey, if you buy all that stuff independently, you're paying like twice as much. So why don't you just buy this and get this box and get really beautiful video quality all the time as opposed to just bogging down your internet. So I think it's somewhere in the middle there.
And to your point, it does include those kinds of skinny bundles, and total residential video revenue shrunk over the year. So even though they added subscribers, they made less money. Part of that is because programming costs went up. And the other thing to remember is the Mayweather-Pacquiao fight. A lot of people who didn't have cable signed up so they could get that video on demand, and video on demand apparently did quite well for Time Warner.
Keep in mind also, we've been reporting for 4 or 5 years now that Time Warner is being very, very generous in terms of their customer retention, what it takes, what they're willing to offer. In many cases, people have been given full-on free cable. It's like, here's a lower package for your internet if you'll just please keep cable. And in a universe where they've been playing that game for a while, it's probably not surprising that they've finally gotten really good at mastering that exact pitch to get the greatest number. Because, of course, as you guys pointed out, we're not seeing revenue numbers. We're not seeing amount of television watch numbers. We're seeing total subscriber numbers. So if they're going to pick their exact metric that they've been playing to, then it makes sense that they would see it.
And to further clarify, we are seeing revenue numbers, and they're going down.
Yes.
The ones we're seeing going up are subscribers. And I think that's a really good point about the bundles, right? Because 32,000 is the number of subscribers it rose for video. 281,000 is the number of subscribers that rose for internet. That's 11% of the people taking the bait and saying, oh, I'll sign up for internet and television on average.
That's a really good point. Regardless, man, this continues to be my favorite longest-running drama on the Cordkillers program.
Where will it go in 2016?
Exactly, right?
Find out. Don't miss an episode. All right, let's gear up. I find this story terribly intriguing. I'm worried we're going to get off into a government regulation jag on this because you could. But I think the more interesting part of this is the idea of the rear battle that's being fought. So, hey, cable subscribers going up for Time Warner Cable. At the same time, FCC Chairman Tom Wheeler is fighting a 15-year-old battle to get you the right to buy whatever set-top box you want to use with your cable provider. This would require multi-channel video programming distributors, MVPDs. So that's DirecTV, satellite, Dish TV, cable TV. It does not apply to Sling TV, a PlayStation Vue. Remember, we've covered that before, is that if you're an internet provider of this, you don't qualify for the rules that favor the MVPDs. They have to be offered networks to carry at a certain kind of rate, whereas Discovery networks, all these other networks have refused to allow internet companies to carry them, even if they'll pay the rate. That happened to a company that's like, we want to convert our cable company to online and we'll keep paying you the same rate. And Discovery was one of the networks that said, oh no, if you're going to do it online, then we'll pull it. If they were an MVPD, they couldn't pull it. They'd have to sell it to them at the agreed on rate. Now, Tom Wheeler says, okay, well, if you're an MVPD, then you have to provide a set-top box that can access your service in any way. In other words, not you can provide, you have to allow any set-top box to access your service. So using whatever standard you want, as long as it's a published, transparent format, the government isn't going to dictate that. Just use something that is a standard. Let set-top boxes access what programming is available, like your channel listings and your on-demand offerings. What you're entitled to do with those things, like can I record it? Can I move it to my mobile device or not? You don't have to allow that stuff, but you have to make that information about what's allowed available. And of course, deliver the content, deliver the actual channels and the videos and the on-demand programming. What do you think of this, Brian?
I mean, I think this is a typical case of legislation lagging behind technology. You know, it was my friend Andrew Main that sort of I was all upset about, I forget what it was at the time. He's like, Brian, calm down. Technology outpaces legislation. And I don't know that I've ever seen it more black and white than this. I mean, is this really going to be an issue in a tangible way that's going to matter to the cord killing crowd? No,
32,000 more Time Warner Cable people have this issue now.
Fair enough. You know, and you're right in that I'm not a fan of the FCC, a government agency that was specifically designed to regulate transmitted over-the-air content, getting into a battle about what kind of electronic box you're allowed to hook up to cable services. But again, that's neither here nor there. I don't know. Iyaz, I'm gonna toss the hot potato in your court. Where do you see this actually going?
Where I see it going? I mean, I think this has to go somewhere at some point where eventually the cable card thing that happened for a while, that kind of fell by the wayside. That still exists, but it didn't really take off. I think this is just a natural extension of that. I think that, and the idea, this is a rarity that I ever say something like this. I think arguably the law might be on pace with technology in this particular case, because I think people are actually used to having their own set-top boxes. If it's a game console, a Roku box, a Fire Stick, a smart TV, we're all, at least in the United States, it seems like the average consumer knows what this thing does. And if you tried to do this 20 years ago, you're like, oh yeah, any box could go ahead and hook into your cable. The rigmarole it would take to get that set up, if done the way it was 20 years ago, because everything was a mess back then, maybe there's a chance this could actually do well now. Because sure, TiVo exists and you could put a cable card in and you can watch your extra stuff, but you have to be quite educated to do that. If you had a PlayStation 4 and they're like, oh, by the way, it's compatible with Time Warner Cable, or if you have an Xbox One, it's compatible with Comcast or whatever other companies you want, it actually might make sense to people now, because they're no longer just putting this concept together of, wait, don't I need a special box? Like, no, I've gotten video from these boxes before. Why doesn't this device do it now?
And let's be clear, these companies benefit from FCC regulation when it comes to, yes, we will make sure that the companies that make content give you access to it at a reasonable rate. You know, that happens. This is definitely the FCC playing the other side of the card. And like any business, you love it when the regulation benefits you. You hate it when the regulation makes things more difficult. And they don't want to do this. They combated Allvid, which was a similar initiative to this. They combated cable card. And Brian, I think you're right. I mean, I think it's just going to become a non-issue before it really becomes something that is widespread. I have it on good authority from someone familiar with the matter that Time Warner Cable in the next year and a half is going to make their app that they're testing in the New York area available to everybody. At which point they're doing all the things that this regulation wants, but they're not even using a transparent standard. They're just making an app. They're just putting it out for Roku. They're saying, you know what, get an internet connection from us, and then you can get this.
That's the funny part is for as much as our show, our show's called Cordkillers, ostensibly because we hate the cable cord, but as somebody who is kind of getting app fatigue, between Sling TV, Hulu Plus, and all that other stuff, you could win me back. Just give me an app that my whole family can use. Give me a login, make it reasonable, $30-$40 a month. Tell me I can cancel everything out. Tell me I can watch everything. I don't have to remember to program DVRs for X, Y, and Z. And I'd be in. They could win here. That's the funny part. Is They could win not only by the numbers, but by our hearts and mind as well. Give
me the ubiquity of Netflix, the ease of access of Netflix and Hulu, but all of the channels? Come on. I mean, the only reason you don't get that from PlayStation Vue is because they only want it to really be on PlayStation, although they have it available on Amazon Fire TV now, and they've had it on iOS for a while. And they don't get the agreements from the content providers because they can't benefit from the MVPD rules to allow this stream on all the devices. They have to negotiate individually for that. So yeah, I think this is good news for people who like to DIY, but it probably by the time it gets fought out and people drag their feet to implement it, I don't know whether it will really impact people unless it causes Comcast and Cablevision to come up with their own apps and put them out for multiple platforms, which would be cool.
Well, when I think of what people in a position to take advantage of this are thinking, when I project myself, I'm sitting there, I'm looking at my television, I'm wondering what kind of box I want to put underneath it. I don't know about you, but I'm thinking, does Tom Merritt have any books I could buy over at tommerrittbooks.com? I'd love to support him.
It's a really good question, Brian. I think a lot of people, when they're looking at electronic devices, think, wonder what kind of books Tom Merritt has.
Well, it's weird because I remember as far back when I was covering E3 for Twit, I was walking around being like, how many? But I know he wrote that one, but how do I get it? Where do I get that book?
I since you brought it up, yes, I do write some fiction novels. I've been told I'm blind to quality, but I've been told some of them are good. So you should check them out for yourself. There are free versions as PDFs. You can get it for your Kindle. You can get print versions with Scott Johnson artwork on the cover. There's one called Citadel 32, which is post-apocalyptic. A civilization stuck on the moon trying to get by while a civilization recovers on Earth. There's one called Lot Beta about a mining colony, and it's kind of an Arthurian legend sort of takeoff. They're all there at tommerrittbooks.com. Go check them out.
Heck yes. Let's move on to the front lines.
Front lines.
Hey man, the Wall Street Journal reports that Time Warner, not the cable part, but the part that owns HBO and Turner, is in talks to buy a stake in Hulu. At the same time, Time Warner would like Hulu to also pretty please stop showing current season episodes of TV shows. So it's like they want to buy into it. Also, please stop competing with us.
And then one isn't dependent on the other. They could still buy into it even if Hulu doesn't stop showing current TV episodes. Also, Time Warner content from Turner currently is old episodes. They don't have their current season episodes on Hulu. They want the other networks to stop doing it because they're like, it's just bad for business. It's causing people to stop cable. It's the weirdest argument. I'm like, why would you want to buy into something, immediately undermine its value because you want to preserve the old system, which the thing you're buying into is degrading and is really where you're going to make your money in the future.
Well,
like,
and the funny
it makes my head spin.
It's not even like they're a giant corporation and you could justify, similar to at the turn of the century, Sony hardware was making MP3 players that made Sony music licensing upset. This is all the same general section here. They're all the content guys.
Iyaz, can you make any head or tails of this?
I'm trying. I'm like, what's a crazy scenario? They're trying to buy it, cheapen its value, and then flip it. I mean, that's the reverse of a flip.
And
Do
they
they need
only
to
want to
take a
buy
loss?
25% of
Why
it.
would you do this?
There wouldn't even be a controlling interest.
You don't go into Hulu and muck it up. It's already enough.
Sources told TheStreet.com that Apple's Eddie Q, who's the chief entertainment architect for Apple now, and Robert Kondrick, VP of iTunes content, have been trolling around Hollywood, probably eating steak dinners or soy dinners or something, talking with TV producers about creating original programs to offer exclusively either in the iTunes store or maybe in a new Apple TV service. But Apple getting into that House of Cards game.
Are they going about it too tepidly? You know, when I think of Apple and the way they introduce stuff, it's usually with a bold flourish, right? We've been talking about an over-the-top TV service or some kind of proper Apple TV offering for coming up on a decade now. And it seems like every step has been a tepid half step in the right direction. But I don't know that that's what's going to inspire. You know, Netflix went bold, and they suffered the great highs and the great lows that came with that. And I would like to see Apple doing the same thing. What say you, Iyaz?
No, don't do this. Don't go into original programming. You got Apple Music, that's a mess. If Apple TV gets any more screwed up, or if the video section gets any more screwed up on an iDevice, they're going to piss off lots of people. So after seeing what they did with Apple Music and Beats and this kind of streaming audio thing, I don't know if they have the brains to handle original content.
Well, and that's what's going on. Steve Jobs, before he died, thought, I'll put out this Apple TV device, and then in a few years we'll make the big bold flourish and put out the television service. And it never happened because they can't crack the code. So they, like YouTube, like Yahoo before them, like lots of people are like, well, maybe we'll get into original content. I can't say it's a bad idea. If it's a great show that gets made that otherwise wouldn't be made, that's awesome. Doesn't seem to be any shortage of great shows right now. I guess the weird part would be if it was just an iTunes show, would I spend a season pass on something that wasn't part of a subscription service?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm so distracted in the chat. DJM says, so a brand new marketing campaign from Apple. Apple TV and chill. Brilliant. Revolutionary from Apple. Hey man, Childwise has been tracking children's media usage in the UK since the mid-1990s. For the first time, their latest survey said that children aged 5 to 16 in the UK spent an average of 3 hours a day online and 2.1 hours a day watching television. Netflix was the most popular TV service of any kind, followed by ITV1 and BBC1. So if I'm reading this correct, it means that if somebody's watching Netflix, that means online time, not TV watching time, right?
Yeah, it was a little vague to me where they drew the line, but essentially if you were watching Netflix on a TV, that was considered TV time from what I could tell.
I'll tell you what, I get from my kids, I get them annoyed where it's like, no, I don't want to watch TV. It's loud and it's in the whole, let me just watch on my iPad, Dad. Get
no
lost.
kidding. Like
Yeah.
I've found myself doing that where like I want to watch something at night before I go to sleep. And I'm like, I don't want to turn on the TV. It's way over there. I have to reach for the remote. I'll just watch it on my tablet. And then I can just press a button and stop.
Totally done that. What about you, Iyaz?
My brain's too scattered, so I need something dumb on the television and something on my iPad. Or if I have the ability to, I'll put a picture in my iPad, and I have too much stuff going on. So I have more screens, the better for me still.
Now I understand why you knew so much about Wife Swap.
I know. We should talk about Lifetime movies. We'll do that later.
Done.
Okay. Birth of a Nation is a film by Nate Parker that won the Sundance Film Festival Grand Jury and Audience Prize for Drama. So right after it wins, I'm going to imagine that Netflix sidles up with their checkbook and, according to Hollywood Reporter, offers $20 million for the rights to the movie. And the way Netflix does it, they release it on Netflix and they put it in some theaters so it can get get award consideration. But Turner turned him down. He took a lower bid of $17.5 million from Fox Searchlight Pictures in order to ensure a wider theatrical release, because he wants as many people to see this as possible, and also because Fox Searchlight was willing to work with them to show it in high schools and colleges.
Yeah, I think that that's a reasonable thing for him to do, because first of all, 20 million, 17.5 million is not a gigantic delta to begin with. Second of all, people do things for various reasons. Beasts of No Nation was a case where they largely focused on the Netflix release, and they're like, oh, we'll do a token theatrical release, and so it could be up for the proper awards and so on. Got totally snubbed at the Oscars, and if I were in the same position, I'd say, you know what, let's do a more traditional route now. apparently widespread critical acclaim is not in the cards just yet for that.
Well, I mean, you're implying that because Netflix got it, it didn't get the Oscar nominations, and I'm not sure that's the problem. Plenty of Netflix things have gotten award nominations, even though they weren't in theaters.
Not at the Oscars, though.
Documentaries have.
Yes, documentaries, but they also had more traditional theatrical releases. If you're talking
there
about
are also
like
plenty of other issues with things getting nominated at the Oscars. Idris Elba won the SAG award.
Yeah, correct.
So
correct.
What I'm saying is, I don't think that's the best point, at least for me. What I think the point is you want big theatrical releases for lots of reasons. Maybe it is award. Maybe you think you'll get a better shot. Maybe it's just like, I want that big wide release. And I think that's what's interesting to me anyway, is this is Netflix losing out because of their policy of day and date release.
Yes. I agree. And again, whether he's right or wrong, it's perception is reality in this regard. If you're in the business of courting creators, you need to sell them on the fact that we're going to write you a big check and you will have all the critical acclaim that you would have gotten with a traditional release. And apparently, in this case, they failed to do that. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if that will change Netflix's approach. Will they start to consider release windows, or I don't know. Will this help people in theaters relax a little? Like, oh, there is a reason for us to exist, even in the face of the Netflixes of the world.
Yeah. That's right. Sorry, I was babbling, so I thought it was your turn. Hey, Sky and Roku have introduced the new TV Smart Box, which combines pay TV content and 60 free-to-air channels along with streaming services. Looks very similar to a little thing called the Ultra HD Roku 4. The box will be available to Sky subscribers later this year.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, this is a thing Sky's been doing for a while, partnering up with Roku.
Yeah. Well, and we're seeing more Roku sneaking his way into everything. Roku's, I mean, they're killing it. They're doing great.
Putting it in TVs, partnering with Sky. Yeah.
Shall we see what's under surveillance?
Should we? Is that illegal?
I don't know. I guess we can. It's happening.
All right, we got a lot. We got to move through this. Louis C.K. is pulling an iTunes. He's selling a new video series starring himself and Steve Buscemi called Horace and Pete for $5 an episode, only from his website. The show is centered around an Irish bar, has guest appearances from Alan Alda, Nick DiPaolo, Aidy Bryant, Edie Falco, Kurt Metzger, and Stephen Wright, among others.
That's a bold thing to completely eschew any distribution platform and just rely on your own stuff. You might be able to get away with that on a single special, but for a television show, I've never seen anything like that.
And Louis C.K. just like, oh, here. Like, there was no fanfare. It just came out. Like, when I say no fanfare, I mean, there was no like, hey, we're going to be releasing something. Check it out soon. It was like, here it is. Boom.
But that's also very Louis C.K. It's kind of thunderous in its silence to do it that way, right?
Does this trip your trigger, Iyaz?
You know what? The thing is, Louis' show is on hiatus right now with FX. And so just coming out with this online, he's already set this up with the specials before. He's got high quality stuff. He knows how to edit. He edits his FX show himself. I think it's going to be pretty cool. I might drop the $5.
Really? Yeah. And that's a good point. He's built up a list of people who are like, yeah, come to my website.
Well, and this is again, we've talked about the long tail, but the reverse of that is the curve. At the top of the curve, you have $5 an episode for a new show is unheard of in television. It's $2 for a standard definition, $3 for a high definition. This is $5 and shut the hell up. You're going to pay it every week for the next 8 weeks or whatever.
But the big thing with Louis' stuff is that it's not DRM, so you could actually, that idea of watching it anywhere on anything. That actually happens with his specials, and I believe this one too. So that's
correct. And so what you do is you self-select the hardest core fans, the people who would pay any amount for it. It's like, yes, no, I love Louis C.K. and I want to thank you for finally letting me pay 5 times more than I otherwise would be able to.
Yeah, and the price for no DRM is $5. Here you go.
Exactly. And he's well aware that a whole bunch of people are going to watch it free, but again, he's focused on the high end of the curve, not the long tail.
Netflix is bringing House of Cards back for season 5 in 2017, but it will be without creator and writer Bo Willman as showrunner.
I'm weirded out. I saw the tweet from our friend over at Trigger Street Productions. I'm weirded out by my reaction to knowing there's 2 full more seasons coming, because it's going to color how I go into season 4. Like, you've removed some amount of the mystery as what happens by telling me that no matter what happens in this next season, there's another season coming afterwards.
Well, wait till we get to the end of season 4 and you find out it's not just Bo Willman that's not coming back. Kevin Spacey ain't coming back either.
Oh, geez.
Dead.
What?
I don't know.
That would be hardcore.
Netflix is officially bringing back Gilmore Girls, continuing the Netflix streak of reviving old franchises like Full House.
Yeah, I keep thinking of Justin Robert Young calls Netflix the pet cemetery of old properties. It's like, yeah, I guess it's back from the dead. It's not really the way I remember it.
The Wart Zone reports that American Gods has named its lead actor for the Starz series based on the Neil Gaiman novels. British actor Ricky Whittle will play the role of Shadow.
Tom, I heard he's got darker skin than I imagined the character. Controversy. Right.
Oh, he does? Really?
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing with Idris Elba being announced as Roland of Gilead. It's that, again, only less arguing about it. It's so silly. It's like I don't see anyone be like, what? She's not a natural redhead like I imagined in the books.
I didn't even know that was a reaction. It was like, oh, it's a guy who's done some things.
Yeah, well, actually, it was the reverse reaction that I read was people who were like, thank God they're not whitewashing American Gods. And I'm like, can we get over what color skins people are?
Watchup is a new app very much like Haystack that allows you to get news clips in a Pandora way. You can swipe up, swipe down, vote them up, vote them down, creates a customized newscast for you. But it's available for the new Apple TV App Store.
Right on, dude. I like that.
Iyaz, have you tried any of these?
I haven't tried this new app yet, but my Apple TV, maybe it's just mine. It's really buggy. Apps crash plenty, and I don't know if I want to just go and try to get into this experience when it crashes on me.
Oh, mine has been
I haven't tried it, so maybe it's good.
Huh. I did try this on my iPad, and I loved it because I would sit there and I could like move things to the front of the queue, and I could get rid of things, and it's like, oh, I could spend some time customizing this. They've got clips from Fox News and CNN and Euronews and all over the place. Then I put it up on the apps on the Apple TV, and I couldn't sign in to my own account from the iPad, and it created a totally different situation, and it was really hard to rate things and move them around. So there you go. New York Times made a 9-minute VR video called The Contender that follows 4 of our current presidential candidates through their campaign rallies. I sense a trademark dispute, Brian.
Oh, geez, I hope not. First of all, Contender is a fantastic card game made by a friend of the show, Justin Robert Young. But more importantly, this is a fantastic use of VR. If you could feel like you're in the audience and my guess is that these are not groundbreaking, life-changing political speeches, but we're going to enter that moment when down the road, there will be some next I Have a Dream speech, and you'll be able to feel like you were front and center for it, and it's going to be a very important time in history.
And finally, Deadline says the Blade Runner sequel film starts filming in July. If you haven't heard, it's Denis Villeneuve directing and Harrison Ford and Ryan Gosling starring.
Oh, yeah. Iyaz, what are you watching, buddy?
What am I watching? Okay, so I've been catching up on The Flash. I just started watching that recently, finishing up season 1 now. For some reason, I've gone on some kind of YouTube bender. I'm not sure why, but the actual recommendations have been quite good on the Apple TV, and the app is actually quite solid compared to Hulu. I don't know what's going on with the Hulu app on Apple TV, but I've been watching this show called Wrestling with Regret. It's by this guy who was a manager in professional wrestling. He talks about his opinions and things. I quite enjoy that. And My Crazy Ex, which is a show on Lifetime, which I watch through the Xfinity app through a computer, which I told you we can stop at Lifetime. It's a really funny show. I suggest you watch it.
That's cool. I Wrestling with Regret. Speaking of Justin Robert Young, sounds like something he either already watches or should check out.
Definitely.
Brian, what have you been watching?
Let's see. I got caught up on The Expanse. I'm all caught up on that. I'm at the same place you are on Mad Dogs. Watched through 105. I did end up rewatching episode 3 of Justified, so we'll talk about that in spoiler in time. But I got to be honest, between you, me, and the wall, now that so much of the back catalog of Bob's Burgers and Always Sunny is available on Netflix, it's 2 things. On half the screen, I have Hearthstone running. On the other half, I have Bob's Burgers or Always Sunny. And what's great is because whenever things get really challenging in Hearthstone, I pause. I'm like, hey, shut up. This is important. And then I figure out my move, and then I go from there.
That's great. I did watch The X-Files last week. Finally caught up with episode 2. I've been keeping up on The Expanse and Arrow and Flash and Legends of Tomorrow. Legends of Tomorrow still holding it together. I still don't understand how they're going to keep it interesting with that many cast members, but they've done it through 2 episodes. Star Wars Rebels, which we'll talk about in our email, was a great episode this week as well. But mostly I want to talk about Grease Live, because, man, that is what live television needs to do. That is what broadcast television can do. I mean, yes, they can do sports and they can do news too, but this was entertainment that I'm like, there's no one else has the resources to do this. No one else has the ability to make people watch live. I watched it live over the air and it was impressive. If you don't like Grease the musical, you're not going to like it. I mean, they didn't do anything there. But if you're fond of the musical or like it well enough, you should definitely check this out, because it was crazy how they did movie level production and even some effects with a great cast. It was directed, Brian, by the guy who did Hamilton, the musical.
No kidding. That's a good way to get me on board. Dude, that's fantastic to hear. And I think you're right. We've seen experiments with this with the Peter Pan musical back in was it a couple years ago.
Yeah.
We're only going to get more of this, and it makes me wonder, what can we do that's not musical theater? Because musical theater, of course, we're relying on 200 years of history and precedent. Like, we know how to do live musical theater, and there's an established fan base for it. Let's just do that live. So in some ways, we're stepping back to the 1950s where we didn't know what to do.
I mean, it's kind of rejuvenating musical theater in a way, that something that was not maybe as popular, certainly not on TV, has now, they did it in a way no one's ever done musical theater, though. This was indoor and outdoor, multiple stages, continuous rolling film. They used actual tube cameras, from what I can tell, for the part that's supposed to be a 50s television show. I mean, it was crazy impressive, and something you could not do on a musical stage. Like, it was just too big for that. All that said, you're right. Like, what else can they do? Because now they're going to do Hairspray. They're going to do the Rocky Horror Show. NBC and Fox are both in the game on this. They're going to do one called The Passion later this year. So yeah, what other live productions?
I'll tell you what, man. If for no other reason than because it fits with the need to watch live entertainment, esports is just going to get so big in the next 5 to 10 years.
All right, what's been on the lookout,
hey,
Bryce?
Guys. Do you I don't know, would you guys consider yourself pop culture-y sort of gentlemen?
I certainly present as such.
Do you know Chelsea Handler? She's
of course,
late night comedian. Left her show a couple years ago, did a Netflix special. She's got a new TV show in the works for them. Her new documentary series, Chelsea Does, is available now, which I think we've probably talked about on the show before. It's a 4-part documentary series where she looks at marriage, technology, racism, and drugs, and it's really fascinating having Chelsea Handler do it. She's kind of a divisive personality, you know, but what she brings to this is a voice of somebody who will look at something weird and say, that's weird, right? Like there's a bit in the Silicon Valley episode where she goes to a startup and they've got a brain scanner, and you concentrate on something and it makes this little helicopter move up, and it's this awkward moment of they're waiting a second for it to try to react. And then it kind of goes up, but then it stops because it goes up and it surprises everybody. There's a bit of reality to it that I really connected to. I only got to watch 3 of them today, but the one on race in America and around the world is really touching, and I think it's honestly maybe a little more serious than some of the promotional material will let on. They kind of sell it as Chelsea is tackling these hard-hitting issues, but it's a very serious look at these things, and I think it's a great format, and I don't know if she's going to do more of these, but it kind of makes me more interested for her show coming up.
Huh. Yeah, and this is part of the deal that she made for the talk show with Netflix, is that she would start by doing these 4 mini documentaries, essentially, as a lead-in to her starting the talk show, which I think starts next year.
No, I believe it's this spring.
Is it later this year?
It's I think I think it's coming up soon.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, I got to be honest. I owe it a full watching, but I got like 15, 20 minutes into the marriage one, and I was like, I don't know. Just
I've been married.
Well, and plus also it's there's nothing more irritating to someone who's married than somebody who's not married talking about how much they know about marriage or representing as if they do, and then using a bunch of kids as props in uncomfortable propositioning of preschoolers. I just didn't find it very funny. But
it's interesting because I thought that was the most raw of Chelsea in the three of the four episodes that I saw, where that it plays into her personality, right? Where she has relationship troubles and has a past of relationships and kind of thinks some traditional relationship stuff is stupid. But you have her going through all these segments that probably any documentary would go through, right? You would go to a wedding planner, you would go to the Whitechapel in Las Vegas, but her take on it and her reaction and calling stuff that's junk and opening up and being vulnerable, I think was something that I really enjoyed.
She's truly the Donald Trump of documentaries.
So these are 4 hour long. They're also like just over an hour long, which is a weird time, right? It's not 90 minutes, so it's not exactly a documentary film, but it's definitely not 44 minutes, which would be like a TV hour long slot. But I don't think they drag. So that's
what would be a drag is if you didn't send us something that you were on the lookout for. People in the audience got something you should tell us about? Got something we should be on the lookout for? Email us, cordkillers@gmail.com. Let's see the dispatches from the front.
Yeah, but I demand the freshest of the dispatches. They have to be 7 days or less, guaranteed.
We got a fresh one from Max. He said, hey, longtime fan with a possible story or lead. It's not really a story or lead. You don't even have to say that, though. This is interesting. Thank you for emailing us. Amazon took Star Wars Rebels Season 2, Episode 11, called it Season 3, Episode 1. Can you say money grab? As a cord killer and someone who has bought the season pass, I was outraged. Many season pass holders were furious and left harsh comments on the episode 11 page, demanding Amazon fix this problem. Comments have since mysteriously disappeared, but there actually are more now. As an Amazon Prime member and longtime loyal Amazon customer, I called and expressed my outrage. The only resolution offered was a full refund of my season 2 pass and the price of episode 11 in HD credited to my account. I was told this is being investigated by Amazon, and there's no clear answer why. Episode 11 of Season 2 is called Season 3, Episode 1. Well, it's not Amazon. The same thing is happening on iTunes, where they call it Volume 3 instead of Season 2, Part 2, but it's a new $20 season pass, and the same thing on Google. At Google, it's only $15, but it's still Volume 3. Vudu isn't even selling this.
Yeah, man, it's funny because, he mentioned it like, hey, man, I'm the crazy person who's upset. But you know what? I'm upset because, like, there are ways under, I think you said you watch it through Sling TV, but purely for the convenience, I was like, you know what? I'm going to shell out the 20-something bucks, and that way I'll have it. They'll be commercial-free. The kids can watch it easily, and I don't have to help them through everything. And now here I am halfway through the season, and I'm left holding the bag. That's BS, man.
Yeah, this is probably a Disney issue, not an Amazon issue. My guess is because it's not on Vudu and because it's the same way with a little different labeling at the other 3 big places, Disney probably decided to do a little money grab, not Amazon, and said, hey, you know what? We can get $20 for the other half of this because we can call it another season. And this is crap. You want to charge $40 for the season? Charge $40 for the season, but keep the definition of a season the same so that we know what we're talking about, so that everybody goes in with their eyes wide open. And that this happened with Breaking Bad too, where like if it's a continuous run of episodes, sell it as a continuous run of episodes. Let's keep the definitions consistent. Iyaz, what do you think?
It's pretty murky, and I know that animated DVDs, I used to get volumes, and they never corresponded necessarily to the seasons. So like Batman Volume 1, the animated series, would not be Season 1 necessarily. It might be Season 1 plus. Or same thing with Thundercats. So there's history for this oddities to exist, as you've been mentioning with Breaking Bad. I find it frustrating and difficult because you just want to watch the stuff the way you watched it, or the way you want to watch it in regular in an order that makes sense, as long as they don't mess up the order, which is a whole other argument. I guess this kind of nomenclature mess will continue.
definitely don't that's even worse when they change order around. The other thing Star Wars Rebels does is they do their season premieres as mini movies, and they sell those as separate seasons.
Hey man, Dave chimes in saying that another use of why you'd need VPN legally is your phones. When it comes, we talked about our story of Netflix cracking down on VPN use. He says, with the presence of free Wi-Fi everywhere, including my employer, I don't want anyone watching my phone's web traffic just because I don't want to chew through cellular data. So I always run on VPN from my phone. Because of this, when these conditions are present, I'm at home and there's Wi-Fi. The VPN is still on and there's Wi-Fi. I'm in the US and there's Wi-Fi. I'm connecting to a US VPN endpoint and there's Wi-Fi. The end result is Hulu and Netflix are blocked. Frowny face, Dave. Yeah, man, totally legit. I agree.
Yeah. And finally, Juan Cortez says, on last week's episode, you guys were talking about how Netflix had no real reason to release viewership numbers. That made me wonder how the show creators and production houses felt about this. Wouldn't it hurt their ability to negotiate with other networks or services when shopping around other shows they make? Seems like that could backfire in the long run. And Brian,
I was wrong. Yeah, dude, I saw this and I wrote my note down where it's like, of course the creators are going to know, but there's no need they make those things public. But then you had a counterexample.
And I couldn't find the link or I'd be more sure about this, but I know I read one of the show producers in response to the NBC thing we talked about a while back, where they released some research that showed what they thought the numbers for Netflix shows were. And someone saying like, yeah, we don't even know, even though we have a show on one of these services. I think it might've been Jill Soloway talking about Amazon, but I could be wrong about that part. But I know it was a show creator like, yeah, they don't even tell us.
Wow. And it did harm her ability to negotiate for other stuff. I would have thought that's the kind of thing that internally you would share around and just say, well, we'd like to see you hit these benchmarks. We've noticed this is what programs do that do better. You do whatever you want, of course. We respect you, the creator, but also we're writing the checks and we'd really like you to see these numbers.
But the point is Netflix doesn't care how many. They really honest. That's, I think, what's so frustrating to people outside is Netflix really doesn't care how many people stream it. They don't. All they care is that the right people streamed it. In which case, maybe they could share that with the creators because they're writing the checks. But it's not about numbers. And I guess if the producers started to get pushy enough, they could get Netflix to let them know the numbers under an NDA. But Netflix doesn't want them shared, and they don't even share them with each other.
Yeah. And I wouldn't put it past Netflix to actually not have that part of their agenda at all, because they're kind of playing the HBO game of going for the cultural cachet instead of the raw numbers. But there's only one bit of cultural cachet I care about, and that's getting as much Iyaz Akhtar as possible in my life. What's the best way to do that, Iyaz?
On Twitter, twitter.com/Iyaz. That's where I'll promote lots of things. If you don't want me promoting stuff, don't follow me on Twitter. But if you want to see what else I do online, you should check out me on Twitter or at cnet.com or gfqnetwork.com. Or sometimes I show up over here in a recorded format in some way, probably next week.
Yeah, thanks for doing those, by the way. Iyaz tracks all of the stuff. If you're like, what's coming to Netflix? What's coming to Amazon? I can't keep track of all this stuff. Go to cnet.com and check out what Iyaz is doing. And you very kindly have been doing these videos for us once a month, which we love, that we play on the show.
Yeah, I recorded it last week. I just have to get it to you right now. So I didn't want it to be recorded while I was on today because that'd be weird, I thought.
You could have just called it a wardrobe change, like a live musical. It's been impressive.
All right.
Darn it, I wasn't that clever.
How long until we do Cordkillers the musical? Is that where we're headed now?
I think so. I think so. Plus our whole reaction series.
Oh, geez. Kill it. Kill it.
Our website is cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com. And we're live on diamondclub.tv Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. Follow Iyaz on Twitter. We'll see you next time.
Hey, guys. Tom and Brian here. We just wanted to say thank you to all of our $5 patrons who keep us loud, live, and independent. You guys make Cordkillers the production that it is.
Your name appears in the video credits and appears in our hearts. And if you'd like to become one of them or see who they are, you can go to patreon.com/Cordkillers.
You'll need to do more than just go there, though. You'll have to sign up and, pledge an amount. But
unless you just want to see who they are.
Well, I mean, you could gawk. That's a little creepy, isn't it?
If you want to be a gawker,
let's go.
It's up to you.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.